I'd be the person who say you miss family and things like that, but perhaps I do. Perhaps I... Good afternoon and welcome to sunny Spain. It's been a while since I've done a video, mainly because I've been so busy, which seems strange seeing I'm currently not working, but life tends to get in the way sometimes of relaxing, but all for good reason. Thanks to Dan for holding everything down while I've been away, and being away is what I want to talk about today. For those of you familiar with the channel, you'll probably remember that back, I don't think it was February, I did a video about my experiences of going back to the UK and if I could live there again. Over the last couple of weeks, I've taken 3 trips back to the UK for various reasons. One for a quick family holiday, Brighton for a couple of days, and London for a bit of tourist stuff with the wife and kids. Then I returned briefly to see my mother and travel into Oxford for a school reunion for people I hadn't seen for 10 to 15 years in some cases. And then last week I was in the north of the UK in Leeds, where my daughter had a university open day because looks like she will be studying in that fine city. Now I have a big love-hate relationship with Spain and the UK, to be fair, and I don't think I've ever really found a place that I'm generally completely happy. Now I think we all looked at, if we were honest with each other, we could all say the same thing. Spain, where I live down here in the south, you do have the most wonderful lifestyle. But recently Dan did a great video for TikTok, which got picked up on local press and radio and things like that, talking about some of the struggles and well, not so much the struggles, he was giving some advice to people who might think about moving down here, because it can't always be great. Now it can be great, as he pointed out very, very honestly in his video. Like most countries, you have a bit of everything. There's good things and there's bad things, good people, bad things, good food, bad food. And I want to talk to you a little bit about the UK from my Spanish point of view. I've lived here now just over 23 years. I celebrate my 23rd year here in April, and I've debated for many years about moving back to the UK. To be fair, I'm originally from the Oxford area, which is a beautiful part of the world, and one of the things that's always stopped me is the cost, because as anybody who's travelled to Spain or lives here currently, you'll know the cost of living here is a very nice thing. Well, the UK, despite people earning a lot more money than they earn here, it is a rather more expensive place to live, especially around the beautiful city of Oxford, where I would like to be based if I was to move back to the UK. Now, since I sold my business last year, it's been, well, I think close to 7 to 8 months now, and I have to say I've fallen in love with Spain again. It is a wonderful country to live, but once again, it all depends on your circumstances. I've discovered the beautiful side of the country again, going out, meeting friends for drinks or food, or just enjoying the wonderful climate. Now, climate has a lot to do with how you feel, and despite when I went back to the UK, especially in Leeds last week, where it was touching 27, 28 degrees the 2 days we went back, I do realise it's not like that all the time in the UK. Now, I think, talking to the more British people or the British expat stroke immigrants who watch this channel or will watch this video, I think in general, I think we're very unfair on our fair country of the UK, because I had the most wonderful visit. All 3 times I went back, I couldn't have been happier, to be fair. And whereas I said I recently fell in love with Spain after I gave it work, I could say I said the same thing for the UK. Now, of course, there is a case of this is on holiday, so you look at things with very rose-tinted glasses. But compared to my trip in February, which I will put a link into the description below, the weather was amazing, and I went to different places. So whereas I went home in February really to see my mother, and things were a bit tense for various reasons, which I won't go into, and then I got very, very sick, I didn't think I gave things a fair crack. Now, wherever you live, people moan. People love to moan about the weather. In the UK, it's classic to moan about the weather. But I've got news for you. People down here in the south of Spain, well, maybe we have some of the best weather in the world, also moan about the weather. People always say how hot it is or how cold it is. It's never ever perfect. People like to moan in general. What I will say though about the UK, which really did shock me, is the diversity of different things there, and the more choice. Whereas I live where I live here in the Costa del Sol, yes, you do have the beach, you do have amazing restaurants and cheap food and the sea next to you. There isn't much else, to be fair. That sounds awful, but we have a local fair going on at the moment, which is called the Feria de Países, which is basically the fair of the countries. And even that's got me thinking about, it's very different here to back home. Things back home, I don't know why I should call it back home, because home technically is here for me. Things seem to be done better, and that sounds awful, and that sounds very critical. But one of the things you hear about people say about the UK is that people are very cold, people are very serious, people are very, don't like to socialise. I couldn't have found things more different when I went back. From the beautiful 3 days we spent in Brighton with my kids. And I'll give you an example. My oldest daughter is going to be studying in the UK, probably in the next from September. And my younger daughter, who's now 16, we've been thinking that maybe she would study in Spain. So when we went back, we went to Brighton, and we'd just been walking around for about 20 minutes. And I turned to my wife and said, I don't think our daughter will be studying in Spain. You could tell she loves it here. She was looking around and taking it all in, and to see it through someone else's eyes, it was a new experience, really. And once again, as I said before, it helped me fall in love again with the things I love about the UK. I have to say, Brighton was a real shock. Not only were the people really friendly, but the mix of different local businesses and kind of stuff very unique to that, by the way. It reminded me of like a small version of London. In fact, someone said that to me when I got back. Brighton is a small version of London. But the seafront there, of course, the weather is not as pleasant in Brighton as it is here. But it was wonderful to have a walk down, both down towards the Hove direction or down towards the famous pier. I would give Brighton a thumbs up. I actually said to someone this morning, if someone could lift my house and stick it in Hove, I would quite happily retire in Brighton. Well, if I could afford to do that, it might be a different matter. Now, apart from Brighton, we went to London. Now, London, you can't really compare anything to London. London is unique. But this time we stayed very central, right off Piccadilly Circus, in a strange old pod hotel, which was bizarre in its own right, like being in a spaceship. But we were very central. And because my daughter is thinking of studying politics, we decided to book ourselves a tour of the Houses of Parliament. I've done this before many years ago, and I've always really enjoyed it. I have very fond memories of that particular tour. But once again, to see it through the eyes of my wife and my kids, it brought to home the heritage and the history of the UK, and it was quite being in that building with so much history and so much beauty, be it the architecture, be it the artwork on the walls, be it the plaques that you see on the floor saying Nelson Mandela stood here and did the speech, standing in the area where they laid the Queen's body to rest for the public to come and pay their respects. It really was awe-inspiring. I mean, when we left the Houses of Parliament, we did a quick trip by the tube to the Tate Modern, which wasn't so good, I have to say. I think that place needs to have a bit of a rethink. But from then, we took a typical tourist thing, and we took a walk from the Tate right down the river to Tower Bridge. Now, once again, it was a beautiful day. So it would have been a very different experience if we were carrying umbrellas and it was pouring with rain. Of course it would have been. But on that particular day, going past Borough Market, past the various ships on display there, the HMS Belfast, it was absolutely amazing to see the sights, to see the buzz, to see people out and about and enjoying their day. It left you open-mouthed how beautiful London was. And from living there for 9 years before I came to Spain, maybe I'd forgotten about that beauty. We had the most amazing evening that night in Chinatown, where we had an amazing Chinese meal, which you expect in Chinatown. But once again, the people there were so nice. And once again, you'll be forgiven to think in London, people will be a bit colder, people will be a bit more not so friendly, because we were really doing the tourist thing, despite me living there for 9 years. But I can't speak highly enough of the people, be it people in the hotel, the restaurants, even the small shops around it where we went to buy bottles of water and things like that. Everybody was so friendly. Now, my next stop, which is maybe the one which was the one that kind of opened my eyes a bit more than anything else, was I went back to Oxford. Now, I grew up in the Oxfordshire area. I went to a school called Wallingford School, which I didn't go to for very long because I dropped out of the sixth form there. But the friends I've made there have become friends of life. And even though I'm a bit of the black sheep and I tend to kind of dip in, dip out of their social events, I do keep in contact with them, a few of them from afar. Now, I had an opportunity to meet up with a group of 9 of us, and we rented a house they rented an Airbnb in the north of Oxford, and we met up there. Now, these are people all my age, all in their early 50s, professional people in general. And I was a little bit wary about how the conversation would go, how would I fit in, because I'm not your stereotypical British culture type guy anymore. And I do feel a little bit, sometimes when I'm away, I do feel like I am a holidaymaker. But I tell you what, it reminds us, just being with them for a couple of evenings and a couple of days, be it visiting the local town of Abingdon and walking down the Thames towards Oxford, having various pub lunches and sitting around late at night discussing, be it politics or family or experiences. It really was, it made me appreciate how much I miss good friendship. Yes, I have friends here. I do have friends here, but not like that. And I came back. I remember one of my friends, Max, he dropped me off at the station. And the thing I said to him when he dropped me off, I said, "Thank you so much for engaging with me about politics in such an open manner and talking about things." And I really enjoyed that. And I don't find that here. I find people here are very opinionated. Of course, people are opinionated everywhere. I mean, you're going to get that everywhere. But to be around my peers, be around my people I grew up with, it was an eye-opener. And I realised I missed that here. I don't get that. In fact, 2 days after I'd left, they'd all met again in a small village pub near where we grew up to have a lunch for one of my friends' birthday. And I actually felt quite sad when I saw the picture of them sitting in that pub garden, because I would love to have been there. Right. Next step. I took my daughter to an open day at Leeds University. Now, I don't know the north of England very well, and I don't know Leeds. I think I've been there once for football back in the early 90s. Now, I didn't know what to expect, really. Due to the lateness of the trip, we had to fly into Manchester rather than Leeds, because the suitable flights into Leeds Bradford weren't available. So rather than worrying about trains and buses and things like that, and we were there only for a short 48-hour stay, I decided to rent a car. Now, I've always heard tales of the M60 and M62 and how the traffic backs up on the hat. And yes, the traffic was a problem. In fact, we stood in the queue at Malaga Airport, and I said to my daughter, "Yeah, we'll arrive at Manchester at this time, then we get the rent-a-car and we'll drive to Leeds." And someone said to me, "You don't hear that very often, someone driving to Manchester and looking forward to renting a car to Leeds." And then I explained to him what we were doing with the open day at the university, and he was saying about, "I think you'll find that the time you're travelling, you're going to have a bit of a shock with the traffic." And he was right. But you know what? It was a lovely drive, and even though despite it probably should have taken about 45 minutes to an hour, and it took about an hour and 15, hour and a half, we saw some of the most amazing countryside I think I've ever seen. I've forgotten how beautiful the Yorkshire Dales were, and you're driving along those motorways and you see those dales. Being from the south of England, we're obviously very derogatory about the north, but Leeds as a city was truly amazing. I actually was blown away by it. Not only did it have some of the kind of qualities that Brighton had, with a lot of small privately owned shops and businesses like that, which had their own unique touches and their own identity, it was so spacious and green and so pleasant to walk around. Once again, the weather played a factor because it was a beautiful day when we were there, a beautiful couple of days when we were there. But I have to say, everywhere we went, the people were so nice, from be it the late night supermarket, be it the hotel reception, a wonderful experience at the university campus with the people working there and doing the open day. It really made me think, should I go back to the UK? Should I consider a move back to the UK? Am I missing out on something? So I don't know. This is the question. Dan put it very clearly in his TikTok video about there's good and bad about everywhere you live. Do I want to rest the rest of my life sitting here, missing out on some of the things I love? Of course, there's things that you miss from your own homeland, and of course there'll be things I missed if I move back. But I don't know, maybe for the first time, and this will shock people because last time on the last video I said I don't think I could move back to the UK. But I actually think now maybe I could. Maybe that will change again on my next visit. I'm due to go back in May again to see my mother for a period of time, so maybe that will change again. But I have to say, I feel that we're very hard on the UK, and I feel we're very hard on how great it can be there, and the uniqueness of that country, the style of people, the individuality of people dressing differently, the different types of shops. We are a friendly bunch, and we put ourselves down. I don't think we should put ourselves down so much, even in the traffic, right? Nobody was trying to cut me up. Nobody ever not let me in when I wanted to change lanes. Everybody was signaling and then thanking me if I'd let them out. It was very nice. Of course, we're accused as Brits of saying please and thank you too much, but you forget how much you like that. Maybe I'm romanticising about that a little bit, but it really touched me somewhat, and I miss that here. And just this morning, I went to the gym like I do here, and at the weekend I tend to go very early. And I came out the lift, and there's the two girls sitting on the reception there. And as I walked past them, I said good morning in Spanish, and they completely blanked me because they were having their own private conversation. Now I thought to myself, of course that happens in the UK, I imagine as well. But that kind of thing happens here all too often. And I forgot how much I miss those little personal touches in the UK. And I think I'm here to defend it a little bit, right? I don't know what the future holds for the UK with the fallout still from Brexit and whatever happens with the Trump tariffs and the trade deals and things like that. But I'm here to tell you, it ain't as bad as you people make it out to be. And you should be blessed sometimes that you live there, because you have so much choice and so many things to do. I visited my cousin who lives just outside Stockport on our last night there, and she lived in the most beautiful house, right, which was roughly the same value as the house I'm living here in Spain. Had a beautiful garden, beautiful kitchen with the most amazing Indian takeaway, and the most amazing night with her and my aunt and uncle having conversation and things like that. And those kind of things you do miss. I never thought I'd be the person who say you miss family and things like that, but perhaps I do. Perhaps I do. Perhaps I'm getting nostalgia for things like that. And as Dan says in his video recently, it's easy to get caught up on the good things that you see, because it's kind of like you are on holiday. But I go there with a kind of like a negative mindset. And this time I went there thinking, should I let my daughter study in the UK? Will she be happier here? I don't know. All right, I mean, that's my take. I don't know what people want to say about it. I'm sure I'm going to get some harsh comments. But I'm just saying is we should be grateful to live wherever we live, right? And of course I'm grateful that I live in Spain, and there's some wonderful things here about living here. But I'm just saying is, when we beat up on the UK, we shouldn't beat up on it as we do. Because be it the politics or things like that, and I guarantee the Spanish politics will give UK politics a run for its money, and some. It's not as bad as you think there. And I was pleasantly surprised and came away from Manchester Airport when we flew out, thinking to my daughter, I'm glad that you're going to go to Leeds University, because I know you're going to have a good time. I know that it's going to be a great experience for you. And then when we came back here, we visited the local fair, again, the Feria de Pueblos or the Feria de Países. And it was a disappointment. And it reminded me again of how well we do certain things in the UK, and those things I miss. Right, that's the end of my little rant, my little thing. Hopefully next week me and Dan will be back together and we'll have a little chat. Hope everybody's well, and we'll speak soon. Don't forget to subscribe and give this a like. And please make a comment. All right, good day. Ciao.